This is the program that shows you the side of police chase videos they didn't want you to see. Bungled arrests, kamikaze crooks and cop-based carnage of all kinds. Welcome to Cops Uncut, the real car crash TV.
On my way.
Coming up on Cops Uncut. This crook tries to keep his crack pipe hidden from the cops. This truck's tailgate is open all hours. And this suspect goes from teeing off to a ticking off.
How much have you had to drink tonight? Taking off again.
These two cop cars from Guilford County, North Carolina are chasing Mr. Rodney Lloyd Underwood. They were manning an ID checkpoint when Underwood pulled up in his pickup. When they asked him for his driver's license, he stared at them in silence for several seconds before driving off in what was described as a violent manner. Quite how you're supposed to drive violently is anyone's guess, but once he'd skipped the checkpoint, Underwood had a chase on his hands. So why the staring eyes and the silent treatment? Well, it'll hardly surprise you to learn that crack cocaine is involved. Crack is just about as popular as beer in some parts of the States, and like alcohol, it's not a drug that mixes well with driving. In fact, it's not a drug that mixes well with anything. Smoking crack and just sitting in a chair should carry a health warning, so if you put an addict behind the wheel, chaos is about to follow. At 50 years old, Underwood has had plenty of time to cultivate his habit, so a couple of police cars aren't going to faze him, as he demonstrates by speeding through this stoplight. This middle-aged miscreant seems to be benefiting from the performance-enhancing aspects of his drug of choice. It may only be 10 a.m., but for Underwood, smoking a couple of rocks in the morning is the equivalent of a double-double-double espresso. His only problem will be deciding what to do when the high wears off. Lighting up your crack pipe and paying attention to the road at the same time requires the hand-eye coordination of a fighter pilot. As it turns out, Underwood is already a wanted man with a probation violation and several outstanding warrants a couple of thousand miles away in Washington state. And for the past few minutes, these officers have been totting up a whole new list of offences to charge him with, including failure to stop for a blue light and felony speeding to elude arrest. Perhaps some unwanted side effects are finally beginning to surface, though, because having shot through yet another intersection, he suddenly swerves over the median and into a restaurant parking lot. He hasn't got the munchies, but he does seem to be getting paranoid. Underwood is running out of escape routes and starts looking for a place to ditch his wheels, although making his break for freedom on foot might not be such a good idea. All those years of legging it from the cops must have taken their toll, and he's not the agile young pipehead he once was. Over the road and into a parking lot, he stops the truck and bails from the driver's seat. This crack-smoking crook was soon being cuffed, and now instead of smoking rocks in the hood, he's breaking rocks on a chain gang. Still to come in part 1. These cops get some backdoor action.
So how much have you had to drink tonight?
And this guy is arrested for drinking and driving with a 3-wood off the first tee.
Taking off again.
This part of Pinehurst, Georgia is so reminiscent of the movie Deliverance, if you listen carefully, you can just about hear the dueling banjos. Yes, it's time to find out what life is like on the dark side, although we're not talking about Darth Vader and the evil empire. Out here in the back of Beyond, there's no such thing as a street light. And on dirt tracks like this, don't expect to see any cat's eyes or reflective road signs. In fact, don't expect to see much of anything at all, because even when you turn your headlights on, at 20 to 5 in the morning, all you get is a slightly different shade of black. And in a place that electricity and running water have yet to reach, even using a main road is like taking a tractor for a test drive. Given the terrain, the four-wheel drive pickup is the vehicle of choice for the discerning redneck, but the one up ahead appears to be a little fragile. In between keeping an eye out for gun-wielding hillbillies, Officer Dooley here has managed to get one over on his suspect. And while his cruiser is still in one piece, this truck's tailgate has gone from hanging open to hanging by a thread. The driver's so transfixed by the firework display that he swerves off the track and into a ditch. Dooley and his mates pull over and get out of their cars, but their man is still moving. So, although it may look like they're trying to shoot him, all they want to do is take out his tyres. This country boy must be more accustomed to ploughing a field, because he's now well and truly stuck in a rut. It doesn't matter whether he goes forwards or backwards, all he's doing is digging himself an even deeper hole. With his suspect preoccupied, Dooley drives his cruiser over so we can all get a better look. The engine's still revving, but it's not having much of an effect, so it's time to move in and make an arrest. This suspect has taken the cops on a bumpy ride through the backwoods. But his four-wheel drive fell apart. And now he's going to be dragged kicking and screaming from the dark ages to the 21st century, all in the back of a patrol car. Drunk test dummies.
Got your driver's license with you?
I do, it's in my golf bag.
Can I see it?
No wonder this officer is laughing, because he's just pulled over a very different kind of drunk test dummy in a very different kind of vehicle. When he looked out of his bedroom window this morning, Jeremy Clary didn't think the weather was much good for a round of golf, so he decided to go for a drive instead. But now he's been busted in something that makes a Maestro look like a Maserati, although he did have the presence of mind to bring his license along.
So how much have you had to drink tonight?
Today?
Yes, sir.
I don't know, about
0.19.
between 6 and 7 beers.
So that'll be exactly 6.5 beers then. Well, at least he's willing to admit to the fact that he's been drinking at all. As for the driving part, it's time for a rather complicated story.
I had a golf outing today for my buddy who's down here at Cherokee. And then my friend was getting married at North Dakota Bar and Grill is. I drove all the way up there, went to golf cart, and then drove back.
I don't know, necessarily if you drunk or not. You told me you had 6 or 7 beers. You're driving a golf cart on the roadway as opposed to taking your car.
If he can't tell whether or not Clary is drunk, this cop is either very tactful or very stupid. And he's also open to negotiation when it comes to performing a field sobriety test.
Well, I'm gonna offer the test to you. If you can either say, yeah, I'm going to do them, or no, I'm not. You say, yeah, I'm doing them, we're going to do them. If you say, no, I'm not going to do them, then I have to make my judgment based off of what I see here.
Well, let me ask you.
It's pretty unusual to see a cop and his suspect being so nice to each other. But there's a serious issue at stake, and Clary is just about to point it out.
Whether or not to take them.
Well, however you feel. I mean, if you I shouldn't be driving a vehicle, of course, when I'm driving a golf cart. You know what I mean?
You know a golf cart's a motorized vehicle?
No.
Oh dear. Well, if you put it like that, then perhaps Clary has done something wrong after all. So now it's time for the festival of humiliation that is the field sobriety test. After being made to stare at a moving pen for a few minutes, Clary is beginning to come unstuck on the one-legged counting exercise.
1009, 1009, 1010, 1011, 1012, and...
Hands at your side.
Next, it's time to audition for the Ministry of Silly Walks.
5, 6.
But at the end of it all, it looks like Clary won't be getting the part he wanted.
Cool. I'm going to ask you to turn around and put your hands behind
This
your back.
drunk test dummy spent too much time at the 19th hole and drove his golf cart off the fairway. So after a below-par performance, he'll soon be swapping the clubhouse for the cop shop.
Taking off again.
Down in Jessup, Georgia, the car that's whizzing past now just blew a stop sign. It was pulled over by the local police, but then reversed into their cruiser and drove off again. So much for Southern manners and so much for being a law-abiding citizen. There are now 2 more cop cars chasing it down as speed limits are ignored and the rule book is ripped up. It's also safe to assume that we're about to go trespassing on private property, and this next left turn is not a public road. Otherwise, why would the owner have built the world's biggest speed bump to guard the entrance? The 2 occupants of the car are just 17 years old, but in America you can take your driving test when you're 16, so in that sense they're completely legit. They're also completely drunk though, which isn't such a clever idea. You're not supposed to consume alcohol in the States until you're 21, meaning they've managed to jump the gun by a full 4 years. And underage drinking and driving is a double whammy that'll have their lawyers working overtime. It's also caused them to have a close encounter with their second stop sign of the evening. Although they've managed to obey this one to the letter by crashing straight into it. These boys may have been old enough to drive, but they were too young to drink and too stupid to stay out of jail. These 2 kids went out this morning in search of thrills and spills. They were looking to nick a car and put it through its paces, maybe do a few handbrake turns in a parking lot before building up some speed on the open road. The only mistake they made was to steal a stick shift.
Really having a hard time working the gear shift in this thing. So he goes from about 20 miles an hour and he finally finds a gear and jumps out to about 30, 40 miles an hour.
This whippersnapper at the wheel is just 14 years old, so he hasn't got a driver's license and he certainly hasn't had any experience of using a manual gearbox. After kangarooing his way around the suburbs of San Diego, he's drawn so much attention to himself that there's a police helicopter overhead and a squad car right behind him. He tries ducking down an alleyway, but that just leads to a no-through road.
Stand by. Back out to Acacia. Okay, back out to Acacia now, southbound on Acacia.
When you have to concentrate on your clutch, shaking off the cops is too difficult by half.
Southbound 30.
So after one more turn in the road, the 2 decide to abandon their car and make a run for it.
Both are bailing, driver and a passenger. The driver's wearing all black with gloves, white gloves, black jacket, and a black hat. The passenger's wearing a blue, long jacket. I can't tell on the pants.
Once the fashion police have given us a rundown on their outfits, every deputy in the district is going to recognize these guys.
Birch.
But the driver is certainly better on his feet than he is on the pedals and gives this cop the runaround. No matter how nifty he is, though, unless he happens to be carrying an anti-aircraft gun in his back pocket, he's not going to get rid of the eye in the sky.
Okay, chasing around on Birch down here. Keeping us down on Birch.
The other units that can drop what they're doing and respond.
As his mate scarpers along the pavement, he treats the local real estate like an assault course, leaping over a fence and squeezing through a side alley.
Okay, running back northbound between the houses.
But the chopper is checking up on every move he makes, and there are officers waiting for him in both directions. These 2 teenagers took a jalopy on a joyride, but they soon got sick of slipping the clutch and grinding the gears. With the chase down to walking speed, it wasn't long before the police caught up with them, so now instead of bunking off school, they'll be bedding down in Borstal.
Taking off again.
Still to come in part 2. This guy goes on the run, on his rims, and this suspect ends up on the wrong side of the tracks.
Taking off again.
This clip comes with a warning for all parents. The next time you let your kids use the car, make sure you know exactly where they're going and what they'll be doing when they get there. You may think they've popped to the shops for a pint of milk or driven to the mall to hang out with their mates, but once they're out of sight, there are all sorts of scary stunts they can pull. They could park up in Lover's Lane and make a mess of the upholstery. They could ruin your tyres by going drag racing on an industrial estate. Or, like the bad boy up ahead, they could end up in a high-speed chase with the cops. Yes, this guy has been testing his dad's precious pickup to the limit, and despite the fact he's already driven over a spike strip, he doesn't want to give up just yet, even when they do get him boxed in. You can keep on driving when your tyres have given up the ghost, but it isn't going to be much fun. Quite apart from the stench of burning rubber, what was once a smooth ride will soon turn into a bone shaker, and the scraping noise as your wheel rims hit the tarmac is the automotive equivalent of being made to listen to Kenny G, except here there's no volume control and no eject button. As chunks of rubber fly off in all directions, the kid manages to crawl through a red light and across an intersection. But with the cops still hovering, he must be getting worried about what's going to happen next. As the named driver on his dad's insurance, he's been saving himself a few $100s a year. But the last time we checked, Direct Line didn't pay out on deliberately unlawful acts, so this repair bill could cost him his college fund. There's also the small matter of having a criminal record and quite possibly ending up in jail. For the moment, though, he's going to prolong the agony and drive Daddy's car into the ground. One more swerve across the freeway and the engine is fully cooked. So now it's time to give him his first dose of discipline for the evening as one of the cops puts the message across with the help of a nightstick. Although that's nothing compared to what he's in for when he gets home. So be warned, if you're a parent and your child wants to borrow the car, the next time you see it could be at the scrapyard, and the next time you see them could be at the courthouse. It wasn't me, Gov. It's time to own up to a crime we all committed when we were teenagers. There was a movie we were desperate to see, but it was an 18 certificate and we were still too young. So we went to the cinema anyway, tried to act like serious adults and told the guy in the ticket booth that it was our 18th birthday last week. The difference here is that Byron Graves doesn't want to see Pulp Fiction at the local multiplex. Instead, he's talking to the highway patrol about a traffic offence. And if you're going to lie about your age, it's essential to work your dates out beforehand.
Born in 82. 2004, 23 years old. We would be in February of 2005. What are you saying? All right, let me back you up. If you lie to me, you will go to jail. Right here, no question asked. Yes, sir. Your birthday is not 2/10 of 82.
So Graves has just gone from a likeable young lad to a barefaced liar in one fell swoop. When he promises to get his documents and then return to the patrol car for a chat, what do you think he's gonna do? For a full-time fibber like this, there's really only one option. Our cop may be good at tracking his suspect, but he certainly can't work the tracking on his dash cam. So why was Graves being so economical with the truth? Well, it's early in the morning in the middle of the Christmas holidays, and it's a pretty good bet that these guys have been up all night. Graves may be a lot younger than he claims, but it probably wasn't the kind of party that involved playing charades or drinking soda pop. Even if he does have a driver's license, he probably isn't used to having a police car chasing him down, so it isn't long before he puts Plan B into action. This young bluffer got his dates all mixed up, and now he'll have to count down the days till he's released from prison.
Taking off again.
We can find out what Walton County's 1031 on him for.
Some people seem to attract the attention of the cops wherever they go, like the suspect at the head of this little late-night lineup. Not only is he driving a white van, but he also goes by the name of Randy L. Chase, so it should come as no surprise that he's got a whole team of squad cars on his tail. And when Chase pulls over to the side of the road, they start to get all excited. Officers leap from their seats, guns are drawn and handcuffs are placed on standby. The only problem is Chase was bluffing. Much to the annoyance of Officer Rayleigh. Unlike several of his colleagues, though, at least Rayleigh is still at the wheel, so along with an undercover car, he's now at the sharp end of the chase. Chase certainly is living up to his name as he leads them back across the road and onto some tricky terrain. But his van was built for cruising around town and not dealing with an off-road assault course. So when he tries to tackle a railway line, the suspension can't stand it. Even Officer Rayleigh's car doesn't look too steady crossing the tracks, but it's Chase who ends up stranded. Now the Bonifay Police Department are ready for take 2 of the scene, where they get to haul in their suspect. And it's lights, cameras, action for the climax of another night shift. This white van man thought he could give the cops a run for their money. But now they've caught up with him, the only chasing he'll be doing is round a prison yard. So what have we learnt today on Cops Uncut? Pickups aren't as tough as you think. Alcohol can be just as much of a handicap as poor putting technique.
How much have you had to drink tonight?
And try to take some driving lessons before you steal a car.
I'm really having a hard time working the gear shifting.
Be careful out there.